Hi everyone, this is Cheryl Ayatt. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to talk about voicing, and often in voicing we think about voicing in contrapuntal music. So for example, we're working on a Bach Fugue and we want to make sure that we are bringing out the voices. Voicing problems actually crop up in a lot of music, and I'm going to show you two other examples from a couple of the Brahms late piano pieces as well, and some strategies that we can use to investigate, find the voices, practice individual voices. Some of these might feel a little bit work and time intensive, but just remember that the best learning is actually often effortful, and if we front load it and do this work at the beginning where we're investigating and writing things out in parts and taking things apart and putting them back together, we actually get much farther, much faster, and have fewer problems to have to deal with later in the process. So it's really a good idea to kind of put all that work in at the beginning, and I put things to students like we're doing a treasure hunt, or we're doing an investigation. We're going to see what we can find. So a really good example of this in fugue writing is I have the students, or I do this myself actually, make a copy of their fugue, and they highlight each voice in its own color. And for the first week or two, we actually practice from the copy, and then we go back and practice from the score, because ultimately we want to be able to observe those voices without having to go through and do the highlighting. So we might go through and highlight. This is the B-flat fugue from Well-Tempered Clavier Book 1 by Bach. And we can practice in individual voices, and then we can practice in voice pairs. So I might play soprano in the right hand, and I'm going to play the alto in the left hand. The whole piece with playing those two voices, soprano in the right hand, alto in the left. Then I might play the alto in the right, bass in the left. We could also do soprano in the right and bass in the left. At this point, we're not adding any fingerings. We're not even really worrying about fingering so much. We're playing whatever is comfortable and easeful, and just using this as an opportunity to explore multiple voices without having to try to put it all together all at once. It also avoids an over-reliance on hand-separate practice, which done for too long actually interferes with learning the piece hands together. Another example is from, I'm actually going to go to this one first. So this is from Opus 118, number 2, the one of the middle sections. And I'm having papers flying everywhere today. So at this point, the texture is very confusing. So we have... So at first, for students, this is extremely difficult to try to tackle. But we can take things apart a little bit. So we can find our melody. And then hopefully the student has noticed, or we can point out to them, that there are notes in the left hand that have two stems. So we're going to just play the notes that have the quarter note stems. Together. And then maybe we do the melody in the lower voice, although that is basically all of the notes, so I'm not sure that that's really an intermediary. We could even do this practicing, I do that again because I had a little bit of a flub in there. And it's actually really important. I used to think that if I wasn't practicing it exactly the way I was going to play it, it didn't really count as practicing. But actually, these kinds of explorations and looking at things in different ways can be really helpful and inform our ultimate interpretation, and gives us a chance to, kind of deconstruct things. It's like if there's something wrong with, there are 3 things wrong with your car, the mechanic doesn't try to fix all 3 of them at once. So this is kind of a way of taking things apart and then putting them back together and testing each part as we go. My other example is from the Romance Opus 118 number 5, also by Brahms. And this is a very complex piece when you're looking at the score, because all of these voices that I've written out in open score are stacked on a regular grand staff. So this is an example of something I might actually have the student rewrite. A lot of the practice strategies I recommend we do not rewrite, because part of what we want to do is learn how to discern these patterns from the score. But I often have students rewrite contrapuntal music in open score, even sarabands, the 3-part inventions, fugues, things like that. I think it's really helpful, just that act of copying that out and figuring out where things go. So the first prelude from Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1, I would also have them write out in stacked whole note chords. I talk about that in another video. But if we write this out in open score, we see a lot of parallelisms, and we also find some invertible counterpoint. So say I've written this all out, now I can look at these middle 2 voices, and I see that they're actually in parallel. And then we have this melody. Which then 5 measures later is now in these inner voices. Moves to the top voice. And in the meantime, I have what was in the middle 2 voices is now in the soprano. So I can take all those things apart. I can even do outer voices. I could do that in the next part, outer voices still. That from my open score, as I am right now, it's good preparation if you ever want to do any choral accompanying. But then we could go back to the score as written and track those voices again, and the teacher can kind of define which pairs to work on, or we can work on differing pairs. There are all kinds of ways to take pieces like this apart and put them back together again. And it really helps us hear. Then we put it all back together, we still hear all those melodies, and this is a big challenge for us as pianists, that we have to be tracking many lines of music at the same time in many styles, not just Baroque contrapuntal music. So anyway, I hope that this has been helpful for you. I thank you for coming and watching yet another video. If you're interested in more of the science behind these ideas, you can get my book at roman.com, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for coming. Bye.